So I'm applying to go somewhere, and I just wanted to know, are there accommodations for people who struggle with time blindness and being on time? They actually started yelling at me and saying that accommodations for time blindness doesn't exist, and if you struggle with being on time, you'll never be able to get a job. And then I asked that person, how can you feel good about yourself upholding this kind of system? And then to think, I'm entitled.
I don't even know where to begin with that one. Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where I'm dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And in this episode, we're going to address a form of the deadly sin. It's called sloth, but it manifests itself in a very unique way when people are late. I'm one of these people who can't stand it when people are late, but then at the same time, there are moments when I'm actually late myself, and so I've got to expect people to forgive me. Am I just as forgiving for people who aren't late? So we're going to jump right into it and learn a little perspective from a Catholic point of view in how to deal with people being late and how to deal with your own self being late. So this is going to be a two-way conversation, and we hope you enjoy it. But for now, make sure you click like, subscribe, share, and comment, because it certainly helps the algorithm, so to speak. And then also, please consider supporting us on our Patreon community, because it supports our staff to do the work in producing these episodes, which hopefully are not trying to create division, but really create information and a pastoral perspective so that we can maneuver through this crazy world. So just $5 each month allows you to not only get this great information that we have on our Patreon community and archived talks and great content, but also it gives you some really fantastic perks. So consider supporting us in our Patreon community. So now let's just jump right into it and talk about faith in a perspective about being late, a faithful perspective on people who are tardy. Whenever I give talks about, say, marriage, and I'm doing a marriage preparation, kind of a marriage ongoing formation program, I talk about how I personally think that celebrating your anniversary only once a month is stupid. And people are kind of shocked by that. And then I explain that I think that it's stupid because of the Latin word stupor, sleepy, slow. It just means that you're delayed in celebrating your love for each other. And so I kind of recommend that if you get the book Spicing Up Married Life, it actually encourages monthly dinner dates, month anniversaries. That way you are not slow to show your love for each other. We know that the phrase for slow is tardy, and you have derogatory terms like retardation, which is a slow development. And it's really an inappropriate word these days, because when you say someone is mentally retarded, it means that they are slow in development, but it's very derogatory and therefore completely inappropriate. It's interesting that there's language police that's controlling how we actually speak, but it's really necessary to understand the root words of things. And I'm talking about this because there are slow people. And you see that especially if you're driving. There's some people who are very slow drivers and they're in the left lane, and it makes you crazy because you're going to be late for work, so to speak. That's another story. But then there are people who are just slow to capture a skill or a technique. So for example, I'm really slow at basketball. I just don't have the facility to play basketball well. There are some people who are slow to pick up a dance move in the kitchen. Oh my gosh, drives me crazy because, an experienced cook moves fast, and then someone who is not moves very slowly to the point where food is going to get burned or get served cold. So slowness is just a reality in our world. But being late is a completely different thing. It's really about not showing up when you're expected to. And that is very frustrating because it might be a product of stupidity or a tardy quality that you have. Do you see those words? Stupor, sleepy, slow, tarde, slow. it's not because you're dumb or you're stupid or you're retarded. I mean, again, these are terrible words. We use it very regularly. I mean, people call me that because they disagree with some of the things I have to offer. I might say that in my car or in my mind driving alone because someone cut in front of me or someone is going really slow when they shouldn't. So from a theological point of view, I kind of turn to the scriptures and I pay attention to Matthew 25 and the parable of the 10 virgins. Remember them? There were 10 virgins and they all had to have oil in their lamps and because they were waiting for the bridegroom to come, and he was late in coming, and one of the virgins didn't have enough oil in her lamp. And it might have been because she herself was unprepared. She didn't look ahead. She didn't actually plan well. And so she shows up and she's running out of oil, and she tells the other 9 virgins, give me some of your oil. And they're like, no, that's not happening. I'm keeping my oil. And so they all recommend she goes to a store in the nearby village to get more oil for her lamp. So she goes out, and on her return, in the meantime, the bridegroom arrives, brings the 9 virgins into the celebration, locks the door, and she comes back. She's late. When I look at this, I have to just say that the reason why people are sometimes late for things is because they've made bad choices. They're slow, and therefore they have created a stupor in their being, which leads to a tardiness in their activity or in their actions or in their response. And so we have to know that being late is connected to a slothfulness attitude as well as a lack of discipline. And in this case, in this gospel passage, a lack of preparation. There are people who are slow to believe that Jesus is coming again. They're just slow to believe that. And they are going to get, in a sense, locked out of the kingdom of heaven. So I think from a theological point of view, we need to fight sloth. We need to be more disciplined, and we need to we need to believe that there is an expectation for us to show up on time. If not, the kingdom of heaven can be blocked out for us for all eternity, where the scriptures say there is wailing and grinding of teeth, all because we were late. So knowing that there is a theological reality of being slow and being late, now let's look at culture and what it has to say. The reason why I want to talk about this is because I came across something on social media, of course. And this is very interesting. Just check out what this young woman has to say about being late. It's so interesting, it's actually sad.
So I just got yelled at for asking a very reasonable question.
Okay.
So I'm applying to go somewhere, and I just wanted to know, are there accommodations for people who struggle with time blindness and being on time, you know? And then the person I was with interrupted and acted like I was asking something else, and then when we were done, they actually started yelling at me and saying that accommodations for time blindness doesn't exist, and if you struggle with being on time, you'll never be able to get a job. You know, provided you're trying your absolute best to be there. And then they're like, your stupid generation wants to destroy the workplace. And yeah, I think that a culture where workers are just cut off because they struggle with being on time, when there's other solutions that we can look to, I think that just anybody who thinks it's okay to just treat people like that, yeah, that culture needs to be dismantled. And then I asked that person, how can you feel good about yourself upholding this kind of system? And then to think I'm entitled. No, if people think it's okay to treat others like this, that's entitlement.
I don't even know where to begin with that one. First of all, I've never heard of time blindness before. So we're literally just making up words as we go along. That's number one. Let's just call it what it is. People are making it up as they go along. They're diagnosing themselves and using kind of fancy terms or modern terms to make excuses for their lack of virtue. And that word virtue just means strength. And the way you get strong is by doing heavy lifting. So this person clearly has chosen to use language to cover up her lacking. And then for her to say that this is a system of dismantling that needs to be dismantled, well, what exactly does that mean? And so I look at this and I see a young woman who is still an immature brat, a pure immature brat of a child who thinks that her being late should have some sort of accommodation. I mean, I wouldn't even know what that means. Can she describe what accommodations means? For her, it means that she's simply allowed to be late whenever she wants to be late because she is blind to time and no one should care. Now, I say this because when you're like at church, for example, I yell at my family all the time for not being late at church. I mean, this is the most important thing you can do in your life. It's like, again, the 10 virgins. Are we making church just something really casual, or is it the most important thing we do in our week? Or if you go to mass daily, is it the most important thing you do daily? And if it is, guess what you're going to do? You're going to show up. If this girl is a Swiftie, I bet you she shows up early for the concerts for Taylor Swift. There is no doubt about it. And if she doesn't, if she's late because she's time blind, do you think the guards are going to be like, oh yeah, you can come in anytime you want, even though the doors are completely closed and someone took your seat? I mean, is she going to be time blind if she's trying to catch a flight? Wait, knowing that most flights are delayed anyway, but that's another story. This is absolutely infuriating to me because I experienced this from a generation. Now, Filipinos are always late. But I don't know if it's time blindness. I think it's culture and it needs to stop. But I can say that in the Philippines, Mass is always on time. When people say you want to come to a party, they're going to come half an hour, 45 minutes, sometimes even an hour late without any excuse whatsoever. But that's kind of like their culture. But for church, they show up on time. And I can also say for work, Filipinos are generally on time. And this is true for Latinos. This is true for Italians. They're not just so casual, but this is a job we're talking about here. And this person wants to just simply make excuses for themselves, and then they want to tear down or dismantle a system. And I don't exactly know what that system is, but that's why I want to tell you about it in my commentary. This young person wants accommodations, and if an institution or a job doesn't provide her accommodations, which basically means allow her to be as late as she wants to be, as long as she's trying. This is the everybody gets a trophy culture mentality, which just needs to stop. Then I'm going to say to her, fine, guess what? I'm going to be late in giving you your paycheck. I'm going to be late in opening up the door for you to actually come in, to actually work the hours, which means you're going to get less hours. And I am going to be late in letting you off of work. This is the kind of touche that this insipidity requires and demands. Now, I'm getting kind of worked up here because I deal with this all the time. People literally showing up late for work, and I kind of give them a ruling and I say, you know what? You've gotten 3 lates. You're going to get 1 strike. If you get more than 3, you're gone. And if they get to 2 kind of strikes, which means they're late at least 6 times, I sit them down and I review a contract with them and I say that if you're late 1 more time, I'm not going to fire you. You are going to fire yourself. Here's a document. You've got to sign it. If you're late another time after this very important and necessary warning, I'm not going to fire you. You have fired yourself. Because guess what? Choices and decisions matter. We need to be compassionate, because I will say that the current younger generation, the Gen Zers, I think that's what they're called, have experienced no discipline whatsoever. They have experienced, again, and everybody gets a trophy culture, and they are expecting that their inadequacies should be the way a company runs things. This is sad, because it goes back to the oil lamp mentality. Because some choices of being late are going to be a matter of life and death. What if this woman was having a baby and the doctor decided, oh, you know what, I'm just going to be late in delivering this child? Anything can happen. That's why being late is more serious than we think. Now, are there times when I'm late? Of course I am. I mean, it's just in our nature. But at the very least, you can communicate and let people know why and be apologetic. And then if someone approaches me and they're apologetic, then at least I can forgive them. But oftentimes, a young woman like this has got the same attitude of that one virgin who just thought, oh, I'm not prepared. Give me some of yours. No, 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 no. You're going to have to deal with your own decisions. And so perhaps what we need to do is, yes, be patient with people. Let's establish a system where we show that we are compassionate. Yelling at her is not going to help because she's too immature, and even raising a voice might come across as yelling in anger, and then she'll probably sue the company for kind of hurting her feelings. But you heard the word stupid in there. That this particular generation is making itself stupid, making itself tardy. And you can see all the derogatory words that come from that. And so they're literally creating a self-victimhood mentality. And it just has to stop. So perhaps the only solution that I can say is ask them, how would you feel if I made you late for something that was important? And if they want us to have accommodations for them, then I'm going to ask them for accommodations in making her paycheck 3 weeks late, or making her stay late and not pay her because she was late. You see, there's got to be a real discipline. And the word discipline means we have to start raising disciples. So I'm talking to parents, and particularly moms and dads who are very, how shall I say, loose with the discipline. Cut it out. Stop it now. You are raising wimpy children who are going to be sniveling like this person, and they are truly not going to not only be able to get a job, they're not going to make much of their life. And it's very sad. I'm just so grateful to know that our God, Jesus Christ, is patient even for those who are late in getting to know him. But in the meantime, it's our job to let you know, better late than never isn't always a good phrase when it comes to making the choice and being prepared and entering the kingdom of God. So consider making sure work is a stepping stone in achieving the goals towards our final goal in heaven. This is just my little discursive conversation about being late. I certainly hope it gives you something to think about and something to pray about. If you're one of those people who are late, cut it out. It's rude. It's disrespectful. And if we were late constantly for you, I guarantee you wouldn't be forgiving either. So let's make sure we treat each other and be prompt at all times. And make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. How do you deal with late people? And if you're one of these late people, how are you getting over it? Let us know in the comments. That'll be fun to read. And also make sure you support us on our Patreon community so that we will never be late in giving you a Fatherly O show where we're dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. God bless you, and stay hungry for God.